What's up, guys? Welcome back to Among the Fence, and thank you for joining me on Request Wednesday. Today we're going to be checking out the new EP Z2 by the Devil Wears Prada. Z2 is like a part 2, if you will, to their 2010 EP Zombie. While the Ohioan metalcore band has never really been one of my favorite bands, I gave their 7th studio album, The Act, a fairly negative review of like a 2.8 or something like that. And while a lot of people let me know that I was stupid for giving it such a low rating and I didn't know what music was, I gave it a further review and bumped it up to a 3.5 to make them feel a little bit happier, more satisfied that, you know, I didn't completely hate it as much as I thought I did. And while a lot of their music and albums and stuff never really, they don't really stick in my head, they're not very memorable, their 2010 release, Zombie, it's some very, very solid music. It's actually some of the best metalcore music there is, especially from the golden age of metalcore. So I was pretty excited to see where Zombie 2 was going to go. Are they going to make something that's just really bad like The Act and they're just going to try and push this new sound that they were going for? Or are they going to bring like some of their old school roots into it and kind of try and blend them all together? And the first song on the album, Nightfall, comes in pretty strong with a dope riff and solid vocals, and even the higher vocals, which are a little screechy and sometimes I call them cringy in The Act. I don't really like them that much. They sound really good in this mix, especially with this riff. And the chorus, it just put a smile on my face. It sounds so good. The bridge hits a low in energy and then it comes back up again, kind of psychs you out into thinking a breakdown's coming, and then it goes back down low. It's just, oh, it's great. I love it's kind of like a little bit of an emotional roller coaster musically. The lyrics are simple, but it's just some good old-fashioned metalcore. And honestly, this is what I wanted. Forlorn, which might be my favorite track on this EP. It's kind of hard to pick when there's only 5 of them. It's a little bit more drum forward than the rest of the songs on this. The vocal isolation was a little hard on my ears. It does get a little... This is when it kind of starts to peek into the shrilly, cringy kind of stuff. Mike's vocals have changed a lot over the years due to... I could be wrong on this, but I believe he suffered some vocal cord damage and had to kind of redo the way how he sings, which, I mean, I'm really glad he's able to continue doing what he's doing and be able to make it work and people still love it. But just for me, it just doesn't sound too good, especially when it's just isolated. But in Forlorn, the blend of the cleans and the distorted, it sounds so sick, especially when it comes out of it and there's this badass riff that just flows right into it. I mean, the lyrics are kind of pandemic relatable at the same time. I'm not really sure if they were trying to do that, because this is kind of more like horror movie based. It is, I mean, it's called Zombie. If you can't figure out what this album is about, then I feel like you probably shouldn't be listening to it. And Forlorn is a little repetitive, but they do mix things up musically quite a bit to keep it fresh, especially if you listen to it over and over again like I did. It doesn't really grow too tiring at all. Termination, which is the weakest song on this EP by far, was the first single to be released for it, and I did a review on it a couple weeks back where I gave it a 3.2, and I'm going to touch on it just a little bit more here. It's just, it was just kind of a weird single to be released. I felt like it didn't have anything really epic to it. The vocals in this song, they're just bad. It's what I don't like about the vocals. It's like the main focal point about it, and I just, it was just bad to me. And I still stand by the fact that this song showcased where this EP was going, and I believe it was going in the right direction for the band, because like I said, The Act, it was just too far away. They did some experimental stuff and it just didn't really work. Some people loved it though, which I don't really understand, and I'm sure some people on here are going to tell me how stupid I am for not liking it, which is cool. But this is a lot better than anything that was on The Act, but it does still have some characteristics in it, specifically in the vocals. The riff in it was very dull. There just wasn't anything to really grab you and pull you in, other than the fact that it's like, hey, they're doing something better than what The Act was. Another favorite song off this EP is Nora. It has a really cool atmospheric intro that explodes once it gets into the verses. The guitar tone kind of has like this throwback feel to it. It sounds great in the song, but also because of that, it does feel a little dated at times. The mellow parts in this song are fantastic. Has tons of just ups and downs, hills and valleys that bring out the emotion of this woman who's just running for her life. I would even say because of the low valleys where things get really quiet and clean, I would say it makes this breakdown in the song even more impactful, and it's probably the best breakdown on the EP. And while Nora does feel a little drawn out at the same time, I wouldn't say it will bore you at all. The couple times I listened to it, I was pretty entertained and enjoyed it throughout most of it. And in terms of blending the Devil Wears Prada's new sound that they kind of developed on the act, where they have like these clean synthy kind of things, and they tried to do some hardcore stuff too, which I feel like they lost it completely on that album. I feel like they perfected it on this. They did such a good job really mixing it all together, kind of like a Bring Me the Horizon kind of deal, and it works. They did it right this time. The closing song, Contagion, has clean vocals in the intro that get interrupted in the first verse by the distorted. The cadence in the chorus, it just flows so well. It sounds so good, and it gets you pumped and ready for the kind of duet action that happens in the second verse. And it makes it a little bit catchier too. Just the cadence, the lyrics they're okay. They're pretty simple, but they work really well for the song. The breakdown, it was missing something. It felt like they tried to do a little bit too much in the breakdown that took away from the brutalness, but it made it more dynamic at the same time. And it just goes. It's a pretty long breakdown, but the vocals help keep it entertaining and help keep it going. And the little musical changes in the riff that they bring into it, it helps break it up a little bit. It keeps it from being just a really long, boring breakdown, break up the monotony of trying to be super heavy and epic. And even if people do have a problem with the breakdown, with it not being quite as heavy and taking a more dynamic route with it, the outro will do more than make up for it. Z2 is a solid album. This is pretty perfect in terms of what I expected a part 2 of the great EP Zombie to be. I mean, this is it. I don't really expect anything more out of this EP. I mean, they did a good job of blending their old school sound of 2010 and the kind of traditional metalcore riffs that they have with their new sound, which I wasn't that big of a fan of, but they did it really well. They blended it perfectly. There wasn't anything I would really change a whole lot of. But because it does have a throwback sense to it, I will say that it does feel kind of dated. The riffs are a little tired. The drum work, which is fantastic, it isn't like groundbreaking. Nothing on this album is really that. It just doesn't push the band into new evolutionary territory that I feel like they were trying to do on the act, which like I said, it just didn't really work for me. So while this album is good, it isn't really a progression forward for the band. It's more of like a fun thing to do, which, I mean, I had a blast listening to it, but I would expect their next album to come out to sound completely different than this, just because this has a more traditional feel to it. And like I said, it does sound kind of tired at times. And with all that said, I got to give Z2 by the Devil Wears Prada a 3.7 out of 5. I try not to be too biased on this EP because I do love that traditional metalcore sound, and I love the riffs, and basically any metalcore album that came out like around 2005 to like 2013, 14, somewhere around there. I love it. I eat it up. So I try not to let that get in the way of me just having heart eyes for this EP. So I try to be a little bit more critical in a sense, but I want to know what you guys think. If you've listened to Z2, go ahead and leave a comment below letting me know what you thought and what you would rate it. And if you enjoyed this review, don't forget to give it a like. Leave a comment below letting me know what I should review next. If you do that, or you just happen to like what you see here, please subscribe and ring the bell icon. That way you get notified. That way you don't miss out on any of my future uploads, especially if you leave a request. That way you don't miss out on that as well. I hope you guys all have a good rest of your day or night whenever you happen to be watching this, and I'll talk to you guys next time.
I was trying